Hello and welcome to Spavia Live. I am Bridget Chanley from Spavia Day Spa of Naples. And today I have the Executive Director of the Parkinsons Association of Southwest Florida, that's a mouthful, Linda Goldfield with me. And I am so excited as they are going to be our beneficiaries of our Spavia Cares Month. Thank you, Linda, for joining me.
Thank you, Bridget, for having me.
Absolutely. So Linda and I have the fortunate or unfortunate of knowing one another because of my family had the diagnosis from my mother-in-law that she has Parkinson's disease. And she and my father-in-law and the whole family have really benefited from the services that the Parkinsons Association of Southwest Florida provides. And my husband and I both feel very passionate in saying, what can we do to support you guys? So I wanted to bring Linda on just to kind of tell a little bit about the organization, what they do to the community. If you haven't had any kind of interaction with them, you kind of learn about what they do and all the resources they have for the Naples community. And then if you'd like to donate, if you'd like to volunteer, or any of the opportunities that they have, Linda will be happy to help us navigate that and how to contact them. So Linda, can you just tell our viewers a little bit about you, Linda, the person?
A significant portion of my life is serving as the executive director of the Parkinsons Association. It's my honor and privilege, and the reason this organization means so very much to me, like you, my family was impacted by Parkinson's disease and other neurodegenerative diseases. So if I may, I'll share my story briefly.
Please.
At about 2006, my father was having issues. So as a child, he was always accident prone. He was falling. I remember as a child, we went to a 76ers game. His ticket was called. He went down to the free throw to throw a basketball to win, I'll say $1 million. And he fell and broke his ankle. And so we always remembered that he was accident prone. So as years went on, one day my mother came home from being out and found him on the kitchen floor with the Sunday roast next to him. We just chalked some of that up to him being accident prone. And then the car started to have issues, and it wasn't the car, him, it was the car, that the gas pedal wasn't working. And fast forward, they ended up at Mayo Clinic. And my father was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Medications didn't work. 2 years later, he was dead from a far more progressive neurodegenerative disease. And so while we came from a well-educated family, we had access to the ability to have family in our house. My mother bought a van, a lift chair, there were stairs, so they had an elevator put in the house. There were multiple things that were done to make life easier. 2 years later, my mother started to have issues, and my mother, we lived in a family that on dinners every night, we would have quizzes and have to quote Shakespeare. So, my mother was an English teacher, and 2 years later, my mother couldn't put a noun and a verb together, let alone quote Shakespeare. She had been diagnosed with a neurodegenerative disease. She was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, which is a form of Parkinson's disease. So every day when I take a yoga class and I lose my balance, I think, is it my turn to be diagnosed with Parkinson's disease? So we were a family that didn't live well. We thought we had all the answers, that we didn't need support, we didn't need organization. And the Parkinsons Association of Southwest Florida really would have made such a difference for my family. And so for me, I am here to make sure that no one lives like we did as a family who thought we had the answers when we didn't. While the outcome may have not been different, we would have had a far easier journey. And so it's my honor and privilege every day to work with people who are impacted by this disease, to help them live well, to help them have access to programs and services that make their life easier and delay the progression of the disease.
That is an amazing story. And I think you are so correct. And it's interesting because you make that really good point that you were a well-educated family and you did have the means to make life easier in the physical sense. Vans, lifts, lift chairs, and those kinds of things that help someone. But there's also other components to living with this disease, whether it's the person that's been diagnosed or the family or the caretaker. And those kinds of services, I think in so many diseases, the caretakers a lot of times are kind of forgotten about because all of our efforts and energies goes into helping the person that's diagnosed with a disease. And while I think that's accurate, but there's also an extended family that's affected by the disease. Now you have services that you provide. Could you kind of explain to us some of the services specifically now that are available to people in Southwest Florida that have been diagnosed, or the family that has someone who's been diagnosed, and how you can help them?
So all of our programs and services are for people with Parkinson's disease and other neurodegenerative diseases, as well as their care partners, caregivers, family, and friends. So we value our programs that are for care partners. 70% of caregivers over the age of 70 die before the person they're taking care of. And because it's a disease that typically impacts men are 50% more likely than women to have this disease. Women are caregivers. And as caregivers, as women, we tend to take care of our loved one and put them before us. And so we really advocate for care partners taking care of themselves, to not lose themselves in the disease or taking care of their loved one. But prior to COVID, we offered close to 180 hours of programming a week, that we took our programming into the community to meet people where they were, from Marco Island to Estero, because the burden does fall on the caregiver, shuttling as the disease progresses their loved one to and from programming. In the COVID world, as the community paused, we quickly shifted to virtual programming, and we are offering now about 25 hours a week of virtual programming. So people who should not be leaving their home, who should be staying home because they are more susceptible to COVID and the impact of COVID, can stay at home and participate in programs, still be engaged, still be active, and still have a sense of community. And if you're a snowbird and you went to another community, you can still be engaged with your community in Naples, Florida through COVID. So we offer movement classes, which include Pilates and yoga, and we're going to start Tai Chi, water aerobics, peer-to-peer support groups, and MSW-led support groups, education programs, speech therapy, music therapy, and improv classes. So all of our classes are evidence-based to help people live well with the disease. The movement classes, if you exercise 2.5 hours a week, are thought to delay the progression of the disease.
That's amazing. So were you offering virtual classes before COVID, or was it all
in person prior to COVID? And then immediately in mid-March, we shifted to offering all virtual programs. So many of our members who are really tired of the isolation and of the restrictions of staying at home are very eager for us to resume in-person classes, but our concern is for everyone's safety. And until it is appropriate for people to be in a room together, we'll continue to offer virtual programming. When it is appropriate that we can go back to in-person, we know that we will continue with the virtual component. So for those that wish to stay home, that it's easier to participate, that will always be an option moving forward.
I think that was the one thing I was taking away from it. Well, I hope that this is behind us sooner rather than later, and that, like you said, we can resume in-person sessions. I think it's interesting that kind of like the silver lining is that you were still able to keep connected with the people maybe who do go up north and keep them engaged in some of the services they provide or some of the people that they recognize. So that seems like that might be, a good thing to continue.
It is. It's if you can find one good thing that's come out of COVID for us, it is that we've been able to remain engaged with our snowbird community. And also we've really started to become a global organization, and that people who live in communities that they have no connection to Southwest Florida have found us. And because they don't have a Parkinsons Association that's offering the multitude of programs, they've started to participate in our programs as well.
That's amazing.
We don't charge for our programs. We never want money to be a barrier to accessing services. However, it does cost us close to $400 per person per year to provide these services.
Wow. That's amazing that people have found you that don't have that access. So that's a wonderful thing. Prior to my mother-in-law being diagnosed and seeing her affected and how she's been physically affected and mentally affected, my kind of like understanding, or I guess history with Parkinson's, has really been about when they're back, I'm probably dating myself, but like when some celebrities came out and diagnosed, like Muhammad Ali or Michael J. Fox, that really seemed to bring some attention to the disease, because prior to that, I don't know if I had really known about the disease. Can you just kind of share with us a little bit, just a little bit about the disease itself?
Absolutely. So I think we're hearing more about the disease, one, because it's no longer a disease that our grandparents had that you hid in the shadows. It's a disease that you can live very well with. There's a neurologist in town who says that if you're going to get a neurodegenerative disease, this is the one you want to get, because you can live very well with Parkinson's disease. It is the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease in our community. The highest risk factors for receiving a diagnosis are aging, exposure to chemicals, which include the pesticides that treat our beautifully manicured lawns and golf courses, as well as well water, the chemicals that seep into well water, and algae bloom and red tide. And then for those who are Vietnam vets, if you were exposed to Agent Orange. So we are hearing more and more people are being diagnosed with this disease. Florida has the highest percentage of people living with Parkinson's disease. So it is inevitable that we will all know someone who has been impacted by this disease. Only 15% of people have the hereditary factor. So while in my case, my parents were impacted by the disease, it doesn't necessarily mean that I will get the disease. The trouble or the problem that has been for many years is there is no test that you can go have a blood test or an MRI that diagnoses Parkinson's disease. It's through a visit typically to a neurologist who does a clinical exam, and some of the hallmark signs of having Parkinson's disease are a masked face, or that your arms doesn't swing when you walk, shuffling or small footsteps, loss of taste or smell, small handwriting, that your handwriting starts out normal and it gets smaller as it goes on, REM sleep disorder. So those are some of the hallmarks of how someone could be diagnosed with the disease. It used to be that people walked around for 10 to 15 years with the disease before they got an accurate diagnosis. And now that there's more awareness and more celebrities that have come out, and that the community at large is more willing to say that they're living with Parkinson's disease, there's more awareness of the disease, and so people are getting diagnosed earlier, having earlier interventions. While there are many organizations that are working towards a cure, sadly, there is no cure in sight. The gold standard drug that has been used to treat Parkinson's disease has been a drug that's been around for the 70s. So while national organizations are doing wonderful work on research, our organization, which is not affiliated with a national organization, is all about helping people live well with this disease to delay the progression until one day a cure is found.
That is good information for everyone to realize, and I think it's important that you did make that distinction that you're not affiliated with a national organization. And you mentioned earlier that it costs about $400 per person per year that you service. And I'm going to make the assumption that maybe some fundraising activities that you had planned are also, just like your services, your in-person services, are being delayed or postponed or canceled altogether. So can you kind of share with me the impact financially COVID has had on the organization?
So I'll be honest, it's been devastating because we did not miss a beat. Our office stayed open through the pandemic to help people, one, by offering virtual services, two, by offering financial support to those who were struggling, as well as we have a community advisor who goes out and helps people with documents. So our costs for maintaining the organization, including paying for all of the leaders of all of our programs, have not declined, but we were very event driven, and thus far we know that we've lost close to $50,000 in special event income, and we're not sure what 2021 will look like. So there's a possibility that close to $300,000 of our operating budget we will not see because the events won't be taking place. So now more than ever, we need the support of the community to invest in our organization so that we can continue to help people live well with Parkinson's disease in our community, because our community deserves it.
Absolutely. And I think you make a very good point that there are needs that aren't being met financially, and there's a gap there. And that's really why I wanted to bring you here, Linda, and why my husband and I would discuss when we were trying to choose a nonprofit to help receive some of the benefits that our very generous members and guests, when they come in and they can contribute, we are going to allocate those funds to your organization. And if anyone else, I'm going to share just in a bit how Spavia is going to be doing it. But I just want to bring to the attention of everyone who's listening or hears this, there's definitely your website is feature rich. You have a lot of information about what we've talked about previously, about your services and about the Parkinson's disease in general. And then we've also talked about, there's also events and then ways that people can donate and volunteer. I have your website. It's Parkinsons Association, SWFL.org, or they can call. Is that right, Linda?
So you can either look at the website. If you're interested in becoming a member, you can join, again, at no charge on the website, or call our office for more information. If you've been recently diagnosed or you've been living with the disease for years and you're struggling, most people who work or volunteer in our office have been personally impacted by the disease, whether we have personally had it or have it or have been a caregiver. We're here to help people, again, live well with this disease.
Absolutely. And so if you have been impacted or you just find that this is an organization that you want to support, I'm sure no donation is too small, given the need. And one way that at Spavia that we're doing it, just to make it a little fun, as well as Spavia Cares, and right now we all need a little bit of, I think, salvation and rest and mental health. And we really think about the spas being that place, the getaway. And we also think about friendship and things, and that's really important to your mental health. So at Spavia, we are practicing social distancing, but we also have what's called Spa for a Cause and that with your bestie. And so when 2 people come in to have a day, we can still social distance, and then you'll go into your separate treatment rooms, but we will donate $10 per person to the Parkinsons Association of Southwest Florida for when you make an appointment for you and your friend. And then after your treatment, we're just asking our guests and members if they'd like to donate. And then we have this beautiful board that they can go ahead and sign if they donate. And again, any amount of money is certainly appreciated. If you do it through Spavia, you don't necessarily have to come and donate through us. You can go directly to the Parkinsons Association of Southwest Florida and do it that way, or volunteer your time or your treasures. Either one, I think, would be very much appreciated.
Absolutely, Bridget. And we, on behalf of the 1,500 people in our community that we serve, thank you for your support. It makes such a difference in the lives of people impacted by this disease.
Absolutely. I wish we would not have to have this conversation, but I'm certainly glad we did, and that we could bring some awareness and the attention that I think that the organization needs, and the needs that the organization has right now. So again, if you have any kind of money you want to donate, please reach out to them. I know how much Linda and everyone that's been impacted that benefits would from this disease would appreciate it. So thank you so much for coming on Spavia Live with me today. And I will have all the information above for how to get a hold of, and your website, and how to phone call you and all that kind of stuff. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Bridget.
Absolutely. Everyone have a good day, and I hope to see you soon on Spavia Live.